we look at the chapter summary of the first chapter, the birth of the prince and the pauper, the two main characters are introduced. The one is the prince, the other one is the pauper, and both are born on the similar day. And in the very first chapter, we see the differences between these two characters. The first one is wanted by everybody in the country. The other one is wanted by nobody in the country. Even for the family, he is a burden. In the very first chapter, we see the setting of the plot. It is in the ancient city of London in autumn and the second quarter of the 16th century. Two boys are born and their family names are introduced. The one is Kenti family and the other one is Tudor family. So in the very beginning of the novel, it is introduced the importance of family name to determine a person's character. And the family status are also mentioned here. The one family is rich, the other one is poor. The boy from the rich family is wanted by everybody and the boy from the poor family is not wanted by anybody. In the third paragraph, it is told all the England wanted rich boy. The Tudor boy is wanted by everybody in the country. Why is that? England had so long for this birth. The reason is the king had two female daughters. So we know the country needs a heir to inherit the crown. If there is no one to inherit the crown, there will be a political chaos in the country. There will be civil wars and other countries will try to invade. So there will be a lot of problems if there is no one to inherit the crown. So people are happy because if there is nobody to inherit the crown, there will be a crisis in the country. Ultimately, people will suffer. So it is reasonable that people are happy that there is a prince to inherit the crown. On the other hand, the poor Canty family is not happy about the arrival of the new boy because they have another mouth to feed. So he is a burden for the family. As it is told, they are poor beggars. So somebody should be there to take care of him. So at the very beginning, Twain juxtaposed these two characters, telling one is wanted and one is wanted because of these characteristics. The one is their cloth. The one is clad in rich clothes, the other one is clad in poor clothes, in rags. And the other thing is one is very popular and the other one is not very popular. And one is wanted by everybody, the other one is not wanted by everybody. So he sets the theme of the novel at the very beginning of the story. That is the outer appearance and the family background determines a person's character, determines who is the person and which class he represents in the country. So Twain introduces this very factor at the very beginning of the novel. The second chapter, Tom's early life, gives a complete profile of Tom's life. As the first chapter said, Tom's family is a beggar's family. So he has a mother, father's name is John Canty and mother has no name, that is also very special and notable. And he has a grandmother and he has twin sisters, Bet and Nan, each 15 years old. So their characteristics also mentioned that father and grandmother are drunkards and father is a thief and all the others are beggars. This father and grandmother are abusive characters. They abuse the people around them. Father and grandmother beat family members as a hobby. All the family members are the victims of their violence. Tom Canty's profession is also introduced here as he is a part of a beggar's family. He does this begging job reluctantly because begging is prohibited by the law in that period of time in London. Because he is reluctant to do his job, his father and his grandmother beats him every day. So he thinks this is the regularity, this is the normality of their life. Although his life is somewhat hard, he He thinks this is the normal. He is happy. He admits his life as it is. Though his life is a troublesome one, Father Andrew brings light to his life. Because of Father Andrew's teaching, he becomes a good reader. Because of his reading of the characters of royalty, he tried to act like a royal person. He always dreamed about prince and royalty. So eventually he tried to act out like a prince. Because of that, he is very popular among his community, apart from his family. People think he is a very wise person. Because of that, people come to him and try to get advice. Because of that, he has become an important person in the society. Though his dreaming gives a temporary relief from his burdened life, his troublesome life, when he gets up each morning, he sees his predicament of life. He is a beggar and he leads a troublesome life. Because of that, he starts worrying about his life. Okay, let's read through the second chapter now. Tom Canty is a little bit grown up one. So, in the very first chapter, we see a colorful description of their city. In the second chapter, we see their city, that is Awful Court. Awful Court out of Pudding Lane. It was small, decayed, and rickety, and packed full of racially poor families. So, this Awful Court is important because the meaning of awful is discarded things. So in this awful court, people are also considered as useless people from the ordinary society. Because of that, they are lived thieves and beggars and criminals and everybody. Because of that, this awful court is not a very pleasing place, very good place to live in. But Tom doesn't consider it like that. He sees this is the normal living place. So he enjoys his living like a pauper in that part of the city. Next chapter, it is shown that their living condition, they don't have a proper place to sleep, or they have no comfortable clothes to wear and sleep wherever they can. In the next chapter, the character of John Canty is introduced. John Canty is the father of Tom Canty. He was a thief and his mother a beggar. So they made beggars of children but failed to make them thief out of them. So their lives are like a cycle. The parents are paupers and beggars, and their children are also beggars and paupers. Although John Canty is a thief, he could not make his son or the other children thieves. That has become a despair for him. In the next chapter, it is a description about an awful court. Awful court was just such another highway as Canty's house. Drunkenness, riot, and brawling were the order there every night, and nearly all night broken heads were common as hunger in that place. So as it is introduced, it is not a very good place to live in. There are a lot of drunkards and brawlers everywhere, and there is no law and order. People are killed like a habitual action. That is like a slum community in certain countries. In the next chapter, the hard and difficult life of Tom Canty is introduced. When he did not beg enough, his father would start beating him, and after he ends beating, his grandmother starts from where he stopped. So he thinks this is his normal life, so he endures. In the meantime, his mother's love is also very significant. When he is beaten, left to starve and sleep, mother would give him a scrap of crust she had been able to save from him by going hungry herself. So that shows mother's love. The next chapter shows how his mind is filled with imagination because of his reading given by Father Andrew. Because of his reading, he has been able to divert from his miserable life. The next chapter shows this dreaming had a positive effect in him. He has tried to be a cleaner person because he saw that cleanliness is an important part in royal life. Because of that, he started washing himself, try to be clean himself. And next chapter shows this dreaming has influenced him to act like a prince. Because of that, the people around him become amused. Eventually he has grown very popular among the people because he knows so much. Because of that, people came to him to consult certain matters. They were astonished by the solutions given by him. Because of that, he has become a very popular person among his community. But the thing is, his family members don't know about these things. So he is popular among the community, but in his family, he is a victim. So if we move to the next page, we see that he is growing one passion in his life. That is to see a real prince on his own eyes. That has become the passion of his life. So he has been obsessed with his only one dream in his life. So at the end of the chapter, you see he suffers again because he realizes that his dreams are not true. Every morning when he gets up, he sees that he is the same beggar. So he starts sobbing and crying, and he is worried about his predicament of life. So this chapter shows about his profile of life and the city he lives in, the awful court, and the description of the awful court, how it matched to his miserable life. And further, it shows how Father Andrew's teaching has changed his life into the positive way. And finally, it shows that dreaming and imagination has become a way of escaping from in his dream world. He lived a happy life, but the thing is, at the end, when he gets up, he understands that he is the same person, so he starts to become worried about his life. So if we look at the summary of the third chapter, Tom's meeting with the prince, Tom suddenly gets the chance to fulfill his dream, that is, seeing a prince by his own eyes. To add more to his fortune, the prince also sees him and takes him into his royal chamber. And the prince and the Tom share their life stories. Tom keeps on telling his life adventures and how he enjoys his shanty life. By hearing this enjoyment, Prince decided to exchange their positions. The prince and Tom came to know that they both share a similar characteristic, that both of them have unfulfilled dreams in their life. Prince wants to enjoy his life outside the palace, and Tom wants to be a prince and wear a prince garment even for a day. And suddenly Prince sees Tom is bleeding because of the action by the royal guard at the gate. Angrily he goes to the guard, not knowing he is wearing Pauper's clothes. He was thrown into the road, not knowing he is the prince. Because of that, the prince's worst nightmare is going to begin after this chapter. So if we keep on reading the story, we see how Tom is taken into the prince's chamber and they share their life details. So Prince becomes surprised the hard life experienced by Tom. He becomes surprised that he is beaten every day by his father and grandmother, and he wonders how they live their life without servants, and he surprisingly asks about their clothes, and he is surprised to know that Tom has only one cloth. So he shares his enjoyment in his life, like Punch and Judy show, and running against each other, playing with the cudgel, maple dance, and swimming in the river and canal. By hearing these things, Prince becomes elated. He wants to experience these things because in his royal palace he never gets the opportunity to see this enjoyment. His childish desires are triggered by hearing this wonderment in his life that he has never had. So in the page number 15, at the last two paragraphs, they discuss about their same life desires in their life. Prince says, "Oh, Prithvi, say no more, it's glorious. If that I could but clothe me in raiment like to thine, and strip my feet and revel in the mud once, just once, with none to rebuke me or forbid, it seemed I could forego the crown." Prince says he would let his crown get a small enjoyment in his life like that. In return, Tom says, "And if that I could clothe me once, sweet sir, as thou art clad just once." Tom lets out his own life desire to be in prince's garment even once in his life. So they both share similar desires. Both of them have life desires which are not fulfilled yet. Because of that, they decided to change their positions. Suddenly sees the bruise in Tom's hand and Prince become aggravated and he goes on to punish the guard at the royal gate, not knowing he is wearing the garments of a pauper. At the gate, the guard slaps on the prince's face, not knowing he is the prince. At that time, Prince claims his divine right. I am the Prince of Wales, my person is sacred, and thou shalt hang for laying thy hand upon me. The strange thing is, and the irony is here, God doesn't know this is the prince. So actually he is the prince, but he is not wearing the garment of a prince. So the appearance matters. Prince's figure is determined by his clothes. So when he is off the cloth, nobody recognizes him as the prince. Even the people in the city start mocking at the prince, telling way for his royal highness, way for the Prince of Wales. Actually, this is Prince of Wales, but nobody recognizes him because he is wearing the pauper's cloth. So Twain brings forward his theme here again, that the appearance matters for everything. Even the prince who is in a pauper's clothes is not recognized. He is considered as a pauper if he is in a pauper's clothes, no matter he is the prince or anyone. So on the contrary, now Tom is wearing royal garment, so he is considered as the prince. So it is the irony here. The appearance covers the reality. So in this chapter we see what are the similarities of Tom and Edward. Like they both share an unfulfilled desires, and both of them are suffering in their places. So these similarities are there. It further tells why Edward is so excited about Tom's life. At the palace he is not given to play or live freely, to enjoy his life. And this chapter further tells what is the divine right of the king and why it is ironic. So if we move to the fourth chapter, the prince's troubles begin. So as chapter says, the prince's trouble is going to begin here. So in this chapter we see how does the appearance affect the way prince is going to be treated, and how honesty is humiliated. The prince is telling the truth and he is honestly speaking the truth, but he is humiliated. How honesty is humiliated is shown here. And the other thing is that Edward feels trapped inside his character. Now he is clad in pauper's cloth. Now he can't get away from that cloth. Because of that, he feels trapped inside his character. So he wants to get away from this character, but unfortunately he cannot. So at the very beginning we see how he was bullied at the Greyfriars church by some set of apprentices. Here the young lads get angry because of his royal words, and he was punished and he was humiliated and he was finally attacked. So after this, every hardships he moves in search of awful court. On the way he was again humiliated for asking questions. So he decided not to ask questions. So suddenly Tom Kent, his father, comes from nowhere and grabs him, punishes him for being late. So Princess agony and the trouble period is going to continue from this chapter to the coming chapters. So when reading through the first part of the chapter, we see he is happy to see the Greyfriars church, which the king has taken from the monks and given for a home for poor and forsaken children. So its new name is Christ Church. So he is happy and he thinks he will be warmly welcomed and he will be relieved from, and he will be given the chance to go to the palace. But ironically, the opposite thing happened. He was not given a royal welcome because he is not wearing royal garments. Although the house is for poor or beggars and forsaken children, he is not welcome at all. The very poor people attacks him and bullies him because of the fact that he is wearing tattered clothes and pauper's clothes. So the Twain brings the theme again that appearance matters. Although he keeps on telling the truth, although he consistently honest, it doesn't matter. The honesty is played as a humor. Everybody consider him a laughing stock because he is telling the truth. He keeps on telling that he is the prince. But the thing is, he is not wearing royal garments. Because of that, people do not believe that. So he was given humiliation all the way to the awful court. So in page number 21, the prince learns the first lesson, that how the people should be taught well to nourish their heart. He is angry about the treatment given by the people at the Gregorius church. He says, when I am king, they shall not have bread and shelter only, but also teaching out of books. For a full belly is little worth where the mind is starved, and the heart. I will keep this diligently in my remembrance, that this day lesson be not be lost upon me, and my people suffer thereby. For learning softens the heart and breathe gentleness and charity. So he sees the reality of just teaching without nurturing the heart and softness into their heart. So just giving shelter and food is not enough. They should be given the knowledge to be empathetic. That is the lesson the prince took out of that experience. The prince is beginning to learn things from the real life society. Up to now he was in the palace and he got the education from the books and everything. Now he is experienced in the real life situation. So this will make him a better prince in the near future. So suddenly his collar is taken by a ruffian. Who is a ruffian? Ruffian is a leader of a begging community. Now we realize this, John Kent is not an ordinary person. He is a leader of a begging community. So John Kent comes and take hold of the prince and thrashes him for being late. Again the prince keeps on telling the truth, asks John Kent to believe him. He keeps on telling the truth, but the result is again similar because his clothes does not resemble what he says. Because of that, John Kent addresses the prince as Tom or Bedlam. So that is the name for a lunatic person. So John Kent thinks this boy has gone mad. So he thinks he is a lunatic person. Because of that, he cannot identify his father. Again, the fact that the honesty is played in a humorous way. Though he speaks honest words, they are not heeded because he is not wearing rich clothes. So the words come out of a pauper's mouth is not valid because he is not wearing rich clothes. So the theme of appearance matters comes again in this story. Now the story moves back to their palace. Chapter 5, Tom as a patrician. So again, the comparison between the situation of the Tom and Prince is brought forward here. Again, how the appearance affect the Tom's character and how he is treated royally, and how again his honesty is played into humor, not actually humor. He is considered as a lunatic person this time. In this chapter, we see he feels trapped inside his character. He can't get out, similar to Edward. Edward can't come out of his character, though he tries to, but similar here, Tom can't come out of his character. Now both the characters are trapped inside their switched roles. So if we look at the summary of the chapter 5, Tom thinks servant mocks at him, and Lady Jane Grey thinks that he is crazy because Tom fell on knees before her and she screamed and ran away. and he is taken into the presence of the king, and king thinks that boy is ill because of overstudying. So king makes several trials to check whether the boy has a clear mind or not. So he first asks questions from Latin. For that Tom could answer, but he could not answer the questions asked from French language. So because of that, king understands that it's not fully mad, and to rescue his mental condition, he sent to his uncle, the Earl of Hertford. Now, if we read through the story at the very beginning, we see Tom Canty enjoying his royal garments and suddenly gets disturbed by the lateness of the prince. So here, two new characters are introduced. They are the great lords of Norfolk and Surrey. So these two characters are important because they are the prisoners in the London Tower. At the very beginning of the story also, Tom experiences this incident. These Lord Norfolk and Surrey are taken into the London Tower to be imprisoned. These two characters are considered as traitors by King Henry because they were accused of treason, because King Henry thought they were trying to grab their crown, and because of that they were imprisoned and sentenced to death. Now the Tom in disguise become frightened because if revealed he would be definitely killed because of this disguise. So because of that he tries to tell the truth first to Lady Jane. So he falls on to knees and explains the things to Lady Jane. The irony is, while he is telling the truth, everybody thinks that he has gone mad. So the news spread over the palace that prince has gone mad. Because of that, suddenly came the royal command not to spread this kind of news around the palace and the country, because that would be a serious matter, that this heir to the crown, the inheritant of the crowns, becomes a lunatic person that would create chaos in the country. So because of that, the royal command came to spread that news inside the palace. In the page number 26, the the health condition of King Henry is shown. One of his swollen legs had a pillow under it and was wrapped in bandage. This stern invalid was the dread Henry VIII. So this shows the king is not in the very good health. Because of that, it is a serious matter that prince has gone mad. So seemingly the king is at his deathbed. So there should be somebody to take over his crown. So if this news is spread over the palace, that would be a serious matter. So because of that, king becomes worried. So king makes several trials asking questions from Latin and French. Out of that, Tom could answer the question from Latin because he has some knowledge about Latin because Father Andrew taught him, but he could not answer the question from French. So the king thinks that he is not fully mad, he is half mad. Because of that, he can be cured. The king thinks he has gone mad because of overstudying. Because of that, he commands everybody not to teach him further, let him be at peace. And again in page number 31, we meet the Lord Norfolk again. King wishes Lord Norfolk's doom before his death. But here in this, Tom becomes worried and sad, and he tells this. So the king is again relieved knowing his son is a softer person. So because of that, king thinks this is actually the real prince and he is not fully gone mad. Because of that, don't worry about these royal matters, go and have a rest. And he appoints Uncle Hertford to accompany him and take care of him. So the last line of the chapter summarizes his predicament. His all dreams had been so pleasant, but this reality was so dreary. So he sees his reality of becoming a prince is not so pleasing one. Now it is somewhat dreadful. He feels that he is a captive of his dream. Now he has become prince. Now he can't get away from his dream. He is like a prisoner. So chapter 4 and chapter 5, we see parallelism. We see the comparison between Prince Edward and Tom Canty. Now both of them are trapped inside of their characters. Okay, let's see what will happen in next chapter.
you.